Ash. Great to connect. Welcome to our podcast, SaaS Masterminds, Cloud Eagle. Would love to, speak to you, understand a bit about your background, what you've done until now, what led you to Arima, and in general, just for our audience benefit, if you could introduce yourself, that'd be super helpful to get us kicked off.
Absolutely. Nidhi, thanks for having me on this podcast. Love to introduce myself. So I'm currently the Chief of Staff at Arena. We're a Series A marketing analytics and customer engagement platform. Originally started my career in the Silicon Valley and started at a company called Couchbase in the big data space. I was a founder and then worked in venture capital as an innovation manager at Plug and Play and One Valley. And I've taken several roles in operations and product management. So it's been exciting getting into this operations position I'm in today.
Oh, that's great. Great to hear, Ash. And I know you've gone a lot of career paths in your past, right? You've done a lot of several things. You have a lot of experience in the Valley and you have a stellar career. So somebody who's coming up the ranks, what would be your advice to them if they wanted to follow a path like you, right? Operations, being a VC, any advice for our audience here?
Yeah, I think to carve a path in business operations, it's really helpful to be a generalist and sort of a renaissance man. Dabble in different projects in finance and due diligence of startups and researching different markets and key trends. And another area to really focus on is identify your strengths and build on those, whether your strengths might be focused on finance or product management or strategic partnerships. Keep building on those strengths, but also get interdisciplinary skills in different areas as well.
So a more well-rounded personality is what you're looking for a chief of staff, because you have to do a lot of roles every day and learn and be able to use your analytical skills in various domains. Good to know. That's great advice. And then more specifically, what may be top of mind for our audience would be what are your goals for 2023? And given the current economic environment, how has that changed from 2022? If you could throw some light on that.
Absolutely. Well, as you know, around April last year, the economic climate became more uncertain, and a lot of startups realized that they have to do more with less. They have to minimize their spend, become more capital efficient, and improve the ROI of what the services they're spending on. So part of this led to me develop my own priorities as an operations professional, and one of them is identifying the usage patterns and the SaaS applications that we're using in our company. So that was a big priority. The other priority is being able to do, like I mentioned, do more with what we have today. So renegotiating some of the contracts and vendors with the vendors we work with, and additionally finding ways that we can reduce the spend with the existing vendors. So those are some of our main priorities.
That's that's a lot to chew on, right? I mean, it does take especially if you don't have a big team doing it. So how have you been able to do that at Arena with limited resources and you have lots of vendors that you work with. So can you give a little insight into how you've been able to achieve these targets or these goals for 2023?
Absolutely, yeah. So like I mentioned, it started with identifying the usage patterns. So as an early stage startup, this meant a lot of data wrangling, working with our finance operations and each of the executive leaders at our company to identify all of the different licenses and tools that the company was using within every department. And so after uncovering each of these stones and taking a full inventory of all the SaaS licenses, we had a big picture view of our usage patterns. How many licenses are we using for each different tool per month, and where there are some underutilized or unutilized tools as well. So after having a big picture view of these patterns, then we had an idea of which areas of opportunity we had to renegotiate contracts and then re-engage the vendors that we're working with. So one specific example I can give is a very expensive marketing analytics solution that helps to, de-anonymize visitors to your website and enrich some of your data. So it's an enterprise grade solution. It's a great product, but this is purchased by a former executive in the company. And we had no visibility into the use case and who was using the tool. So what we did here is we ended up scheduling a meeting with this vendor, aligning with the account team of the vendor, the account manager, the operations stakeholder within this vendor. And ultimately we were able to just be fully transparent with them. This is a situation where a new team, this tool was purchased and acquired by a former executive at the company. How do we get the most value and ROI out of this tool? And we're also transparent that the tool wasn't being utilized to the full extent. So what we're able to do is cut the spend in half, which was a achievement. There's a part of the license we weren't utilizing, but we also were able to get really concierge experience utilizing more of the feature sets, getting guidance and implementing the tool further within the organization. So increasing the ROI of the tool. And then we're also able to get more access and even free access to some of the new features that they're releasing. So threefold, we were able to reduce the spend, identify the usage patterns of where we weren't using the features we were paying for and cut those areas, and identify areas there we could even get a further ROI from this product and latch on to that.
This is really interesting because we see a lot of our, customers that we work with, they're very focused on like reducing the spend, but not really the ROI part of it is like, hey, even if I cut the spend, can I get more out of the tool, right? And I think that is very good that you were able to work with the vendor, thinking of them as a strategic partner and, really realizing that value that the vendor originally was planned to bring in, right? And so I think that's great because I think that's usually what vendors play a part, right? They're very strategic in terms of like achieving our goals, right? And that's a unique take, I think, that you guys have for your vendors. And do you think like, a tool would have helped, like Cloud Eagle would have helped you guys, like, make that process much faster and efficient? If you were to use a tool, right, especially at a bigger size company, would that be a useful tool? Because I think one of the big challenges is people don't know what they are using.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think having a tool that can help you consolidate all of your usage patterns, like I mentioned, and then even help you negotiate vendor or contracts with these vendors is really helpful. I mean, what you'll find is in the current state of the market, many SaaS vendors are facing similar situations, right? And they're willing to come to the table, and with the right partner on board, they're willing to renegotiate terms. They're willing to extend different incentives, give access to new features. And I think having a tool like Cloud Eagle, especially for larger organizations, can really help navigate those discussions and then identify those usage patterns as well, like I was mentioning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's where companies find us very helpful because we become that conduit or the facilitator of these conversations where we look at your vendors as more strategic partners, bring them to the table. And since we have a lot of experience working with these vendors, right, we kind of like, bring that to fruition. And then, you can focus on things that are more important to you, which is like growing the business and having somebody else deal with that. So that's a great story, Ash, that you shared with us about how not just cutting costs, but like really looking at like, hey, how do I basically get the ROI of your tools, right? So any other goals that you have for your 2023 in terms of like how you're thinking about your vendor ecosystem, growing the business as a business operations person? What are some of the other things that you work on?
So about 25% of my time is working on strategic projects, so channel partnerships, process improvements, validating new markets. The other 25% of time is spent on, recruiting and bringing on executive level hires at our company. I'm spending another quarter of my time in general business operations. So tasks like I mentioned, negotiating contracts with vendors and finding areas where we can reduce costs.
Mm-hmm.
And the other quarter of my time is sales ops and revenue operations and helping ensure that our business is running as a repeatable engine.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think business operations wears a lot of hats, and that's where it gets interesting. And you can apply the techniques, like the different mindset that you have, right? Hey, it's not just like a cost optimization; it's an ROI discussion that you need to have with your vendors everywhere. The skills that you can actually take, the general business skills that you're taking from different areas that you're working on. That's quite interesting. Any other things that you can share with our audience here in terms of how you work with these vendors, or even your initiatives, like any other insights that you can share?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's really important to be clear about the business the business outcomes you're looking for out of the product, and clearly mapping out the metrics that you're looking to achieve, and showing them the deficit of, hey, this product is not meeting this outcome, and giving them some sort of lever on, hey, if you can reduce the cost or give us more access to X feature or Y feature to help us achieve this outcome, it'll be an incentive for us to stay as partners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that way it's not too aggressive, it's not strong arming them, it's being transparent. We have this goal to meet, it's this business outcome we need to meet, and help us get there, whether it's new terms for the contract, or whether it's new features, whether it's new products you can offer us. And that way it's a two-sided relationship. It's not trying to strong arm them, but it's mutually beneficial there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that is essentially what you should strive for. It's not just one cost that we're looking for. We're looking for an overall relationship building with your vendors. That's key to this. Anything else that you think, Ash, would be helpful for our audience to know before we close?
Yeah, I think it's really important to assess what is your overall strategy for managing SaaS spend, right? You need a comprehensive strategy that can identify those usage patterns, like I mentioned, whether it's using a tool like Cloud Eagle or another solution. And then you need a way to take triggers or actions on those usage patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a playbook on managing the SaaS spend and acting on those patterns. So whether it's like the story I mentioned, where we had a vendor where we weren't using the product to the full extent and we were paying too much for certain features, have a repeatable process that you can repeat and share throughout your operations team or your finance team, so that as the company scales, you have a playbook you can leverage there. That's
great. Thank you, Ash, for sharing your words of wisdom with our audience here. It was a pleasure hosting you on our SaaS Masterminds at Cloud Eagle. Thank you. I'm going to pause now.